Welcome back. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about fighting depression during the pandemic. So this is something that I've been wanting to make for a little while just because of the mental impact of what's going on in our country and the world. And it's got a double-edged sword. So the positive side is that I feel like people going through the pandemic, as we all are getting a glimpse into the depressed mind, in that the depressed state of mind is it focuses on uncertainty. That's one of the things that really triggers depression and mental illness, is just the fact of not knowing what tomorrow is going to bring. And so when you look at the pandemic and you look at how we've kind of gone back and forth on what's going to help, what isn't, on procedures, on mandating masks and so forth, it's really just it's feeding people's worries. And while I do believe in doing what we can to help, and I do believe in cooperating, at the same hand, I think it's something that we need to address, because I feel like, as we're seeing throughout the country, we see a lot of pushback. A lot of people where they don't want to comply, and I think a big part of it is just their own mental well-being. And so while that shouldn't supersede the greater good, us cooperating, us doing what we can to help out, I think it's something that needs to be addressed, because I've seen little glimpses into people talking about mental awareness and such, but as I would encourage people to become aware of mental illness, I would also encourage them to seek what we can do to combat it, to seek what we can do to counteract it, and what the nature of it is, because I really feel like there's a lot of non-communication, or at least bad communication throughout this country, and that's really creating a divide on so many different subjects, the pandemic being one of them, where a lot of people are just I say going with what they're being told and so forth. They're masking up. They were doing it before they were required to and so forth. Whereas other people don't want to comply and so forth. And rather than us just write them off or say that they're wrong or so and such, I think it's important for us to figure out why people are having their personal positions on these subjects. And again, too, one of the demographics of people that I say my heart's going out to is the mentally depressed, because like I said, just with understanding depression from my own perspective and the struggles that I've been throughout life, and knowing the impact that it has everlasting. So, before my twin brother was killed, before my dad did what he did to my sister, and all these other painful events, generally speaking, I was a very optimistic, easygoing person. I really let very little bother me. And it's not that it didn't somewhat emotionally upset me, but I don't know. I was a very, very, very positive person. And so I really wasn't scared of the world. And as, painful events happened, specifically with my twin brother being killed, that really diminished my outlook on life. It really made it so I didn't trust life anymore. And you're constantly in this state of mind where you're looking out for the next bombshell. You're looking out for the next shock wave that's just going to take you off your feet after something traumatic happens to you. And so, my heart goes out to people who are already suffering from deep states of depression and mental illness, because right now this is reassuring them of their worries. This is really feeding their depression, because, like I said, the depressed state of mind is constantly worrying about the unknown. It's constantly worried about what is tomorrow going to bring, and how is that going to wreak havoc on my life. And so when things are actually changing, and when we're seeing everyone around us wearing masks and so forth, it really just feeds our worries. It just feeds what is tomorrow going to bring. And so it's just really important as a country and as communities, as individuals, that we try to figure out what we can do to support each other in our mental illness, and support each other in our depression. And for those who are, probably slipping into it because of what's going on, that was one of the things locally, was that mental illness and suicides were at an all-time high because of what's going on. And I'm sure that the rest of the country is seeing similar results, because, just a lot of people got laid off. A lot of people, weren't able to go into their works because of the restrictions, and because of, the requirements of trying to nip this disease in the butt. And the problem is like I said, that just reassures people of their paranoia, and that's one of the things that, again, too, while I think that this is an opportunity for people to get a glimpse into the anxiety that people with depression have to face on a day-to-day routine. The tough thing is, I feel like that this what we're going through as a country and the world is really going to have a very lasting impression on our mental illness, and to the point where, just think hypothetically, Lord willing that this passes and that we, get a vaccine, we get this under control, and we can go back to normal lives where we don't have to wear masks, we don't have to social distance. Just think about how this is going to impact people mentally down the road, where, some people might be mentally scarred to where if they see someone cough, they might, kind of have a flashback to how things were, and just them just constantly worrying about, it's just one of those things where, I've discussed in past movies in past episodes of mine, where there was just this random coincidence where I got a phone call from my dad and a phone call from my best friend's dad within a matter of minutes. And because I had received that information about my twin brother, that's the emotion that re-triggered. I seriously, I want to say I had a panic attack, but yeah, my depression kicked in pretty hard, and I was just dreading calling either of them back because I didn't want to know, because I'd gone through that and I didn't want to go through it again. And it ended up just being, like I said, a mere coincidence. But so that's the tough thing with this, is that it's going to leave mental scars where even when tragedy isn't striking, it's gonna trigger people's anxiety. And like I said, rightfully so, because, after something like this happens, it's something that it's mentally imprinted in our minds. It's not something where, we can, it's gonna take some time. Like I said, the biggest thing is just more or less us being able to be honest with how it's affecting us mentally, how it's feeding our worries, how it's feeding, just our paranoia. But again, I think that it's really important to understand mental health and depression is allowing people to be honest with how they feel, not with necessarily what's actually happening, but that, again, like that's one of the things that's just very difficult. And I see both sides of the spectrum, as far as, people who have been wearing masks since day one, and they're adamant about doing anything and everything to stop this and prevent deaths. But at the same hand, I also empathize with those who are resistant to wearing masks, because, again, it's just this thing where people are just terrified of losing control of their lives. And so when they're being told that they have to, I feel like that's what is triggering. It's not about cooperating. I think it's one of those things where, I think if people were dealing with high risk people at a regular basis, it might become more apparent to them that they should do something. And again, it's just one of those chain reactions where we don't realize that just because we're not dealing with high risk people, it doesn't mean that people we interact with aren't. And so again, it's just important for us to understand why people are making decisions, rather than just judging them for making decisions. Because that's why a lot of people don't explain their side. That's a lot of reasons why people don't talk about what their beliefs are on these subjects, is because they're just so used to being ridiculed. They're so used to and again too, I think the biggest contributor to that is I feel like a lot of the people who are talking about their perspective on these subjects are doing it so on social media. They're not doing it in person, having dialogue where one person speaks, they get their piece out, and then the other side talks about their perspective on the situation. And so I feel like, with social media and so forth, people are going to be much more apt to speak emotionally. And again, too, they're going to be much more emboldened to attack people because, again, too, I think just by nature, when we're present in front of somebody, we're just by nature going to be much more civil. We're going to be much more calm, just because we're taught to be calm in a public space. Not to say that everyone is. Like I said, I've seen, a few videos of people being confronted and freaking out. But again, I think people need to be objective. So while I'm not defending these people freaking out on either side of the spectrum, I do understand the reason why, the nature of why they're freaking out. And it's to me very little to do with the one incident. To me, I think for somebody who freaks out because someone's telling them to wear a mask, I feel like I said, it's a lot to do with them trying to have control of their lives. And so if they feel like they're losing control, and someone confronts them about them and tells them how they need to make their choices, yeah, they're going to spaz out. Again, not justifiable, but I think it's important to understand what their motives are, and just understand, I don't think that most people that are having issues complying are malicious. I don't think they're being insidious and trying to compromise the well-being of others. I just feel like, with the back and forth on what's helping, what isn't helping with this pandemic, a lot of people are skeptical. And again, too, I understand that skepticism. But at the same hand, too, I also think it's important for us to, again, do our best to try to make each other feel comfortable. Again, I personally have, I want to say my doubts with the masks. But that being said, recently in Montana, they mandated that larger counties wear masks. The county, one of which that I'm living in, is one of them. And while I do wish it was left up to the businesses, because if a business wants to have a policy, that's their business. And I'm not a big fan of the state requiring. And again, our population is pretty dang small in the state of Montana. That being said, it's not the end of the world. If I need to cooperate and again take stress off of businesses and so forth, and not challenge this, because at the end of the day, it's not that huge of a convenience or inconvenience for me to put a mask on, then I'll do it. And so again, I feel like there's just so many times where we fill in the void. We look at people's actions or lack of actions, and we judge it based on our own perspective of what those actions or lack of actions mean, if we did them. And we're not realizing that the people have, again, too, for people who are freaking out about people wearing masks, maybe they lost a loved one, or maybe they have a high risk loved one, or maybe they have multiple people in their family that are high risk for this disease to kill them. And so again, they're coming from a personal, emotional perspective, and so they're going to be much more apt to, again, too, if they see somebody not wearing a mask, to almost feel like they're being negligent, almost like they're playing Russian roulette with their loved ones, where again, they take it in such a personal aspect, and they're blinded to the pain, the mental pain, that people don't want to wear a mask, of why that's their prerogative. Like I said, I feel like the majority of people who are on all these confrontations are really good people at heart. But again, too, it's just that their experiences in life have driven them to this point where they have these strong emotions. And again, too, that's why it's so important for people to talk about mental illness and get a strong understanding of what's driving them, of not just the principles that they live by and the values that they hold, but why they have those values and why they have those principles. Why do you not want to wear a mask? And just dig deeper. It's not that I'm saying, I'm questioning it and saying somehow you have to give me some list of things before I nod and say, okay, approved. But it's just a matter of self-reflection and understanding why, not simply just because you think it's your civil right to not wear a mask, or you think the government shouldn't have that authority. That on the surface, okay, I can appreciate that. But to dig deeper of again, is it just a matter of past experiences where authoritarian positions, I won't say abused you, but maybe that was the case. Maybe you were abused by an authority, or have been a victim of that type of control. And so it's triggering that emotion. And so that's why you care about this, not as much as, again, I don't feel like it's that big of a deal to wear a mask. Now, that being said, I do think we do need to have some type of I don't want to say contingency, but some type of empathy and sympathy for people with medical conditions where they have respiratory problems. I imagine people who suffer from asthma and people who have other breathing restrictions, again, wearing a mask on a long period of time may be impeding their health far more so than just, I don't want to say far more so, because again, too, you'd think of somebody who has asthma would be actually at higher risk for getting corona. But again, too, you just have to understand people's ability to talk about why they have their position rather than simply dismiss it. And again, too, just, with all the issues we're seeing in society, it's this lack of dialogue where we can't talk about why we have our positions. We're just immediately, that's one of the things that I've noticed with a lot of quote unquote dialogue with that you see on the social media and so forth, where people are confronting other people on all types of different subjects. But a lot of times you can see that the people having dialogue aren't even listening to the person speaking. They're just trying to think up the next rebuttal that they're going to say. They're not even trying to take in the information and just realize that there's just another person on the side of the conversation. And just as we have experiences and we have emotions and I say we have life lessons that have taught us this is what matters and this is why it matters. A lot of people didn't necessarily experience those things. So again, it's just one of those things where, we could, we could justifiably, attack somebody, but it's not going to accomplish anything. It's not going to convince them that they're wrong or potentially partially wrong. It's just really important for us to know why we have our positions, know why we feel compelled to live in the manner with which we do, but at the same hand realize that people who aren't living the same lifestyle and same values and same decisions as we are probably are doing so because of their own perspective, because of their own experiences, and again, just with the nation being in this I say mentally fragile state, just because there's so many things going on. I don't think any of it would be easy, but you just look at the civil unrest with so many different subjects. It's not one thing that we're dealing with as a nation. We're dealing with just a plethora of things. And so it's important for us to, again, slow down and try to tackle these one at a time and not have these solid in concrete positions where we're inflexible and we can't listen to the reasons behind each other's actions. Because that's one thing that I've learned is that there's reasons behind everything. They're not always good reasons. There's plenty of bad reasons, but there are reasons. And so dismissing something and essentially, not identifying that there's a reason behind it is denying the fact that it even took place. Because, if somebody freaks out in the store because someone's confronting them because they're not wearing a mask, there was a reason, and without us identifying a reason, that we can't help it from stopping. We can't try to reach out to people who are in that similar situation, to where they have that perspective, and again, too, they have those life experiences that make them lash out in such a way. So it's just so important right now. Just because, with the constant balance, there's so many different things in our country that we need to fix. And there's so many, we're talking about police reform. And frankly, I think that, a lot of discussion's been, I think we need government reform, just so that we're more efficient, so we're not wasting so much money and so much. I feel like the nation is in this constant tug of war where one party gets into office and pulls the country in one direction, and then the other party gets in office and pulls us in another direction. And so rather than us going in a straight line and moving forward as a nation, we're constantly going from one side to the other. And again, too, a lot of times, we're really looking for 51% of the country being happy. And it's a sad number, especially with how large the country is. That's roughly 60 to 65 million people. Well, I guess no, it would be, so there's 328 million. So we're looking at about 160 plus million that are not satisfied with what's going on, either which way. And so again, it just seems like we need to really work on creating some partisan agreement, some compromises to where we can really move forward as a nation and figure out how to, again, take each other's positions into account, to not just simply look at the world through our own eyes, but really try to look through the world through each other's eyes. That's just one of the things that I think, again, with what this opportunity we're given, with the pandemic and everything, is we really need to discuss our position on it, and not simply our position, but also why we have that position, our personal experiences, our skepticisms, our the wisdom that's been passed down, and really get a clearer picture of what's going on, rather than just having these instant judgments on each other, and really, again, just derailing the process of healing, the process of understanding each other. But yeah, there's so much more to talk about. But as always, good luck and good night.